All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to demystify a service that's honestly fundamental to making anything work on the public internet, especially if you're in the AWS world. We're talking about Route 53, what I like to call the internet's address book. So picture this, right? You've poured weeks, maybe even months into building the perfect application. It's flawless on your laptop, you've got it all containerized, ready for the cloud. But then you hit that one massive question. Now that it's out there in the wild, how does the world actually find it? And to make this super concrete, let's follow a pretty common path, okay? A developer is trying to get their Spring Boot app running on AWS's Elastic Kubernetes Service, EKS. This is exactly the kind of real-world problem where what we're talking about today goes from being just important to being absolutely essential. And here we go. This is the first most crucial step. Before you can do anything else, you need an address. On the internet, that means you've got to own a domain name. We're talking about a top-level domain, a TLD, your .coms, your .orgs. This is totally non-negotiable if you want anyone to see your app. Okay, so you have a name, but how does that actually work? Well, that question leads us right to the magic that makes the whole internet tick, the domain name system, or DNS. Seriously, the best way to think about it is like a giant, universal phone book for the entire web. So what is DNS really? At its core, it's a translator. It takes a name that we humans can remember, like google.com, and turns it into an IP address that computers understand. One of those long strings of numbers. I mean, think about it. Could you imagine having to memorize the IP address for every website you visit? It'd be like having a phone with no contact list. DNS is truly the unsung hero that makes the internet, well, usable. Right. So DNS is the system, but what's the actual tool our developer needs inside the AWS world to make this happen? Well, this is where our star of the show comes onto the stage. Let's talk about AWS Route 53. Okay, so here's the textbook definition, but let's focus on the two most important words here, highly available and scalable. What does that actually mean for you? It means it's built to be rock solid, it's not going to go down, and it can handle whatever you throw at it, whether you have 10 users or 10 million. It's basically the industrial strength version of that phone book we were talking about, built specifically for the AWS cloud. So what does Route 53 actually do? Well, it's got a few core jobs. First up, you can actually buy and register your domain name right through it. Super convenient. Second, it manages all the settings for your domain in something called a hosted zone. Just think of a hosted zone as the one page in the phone book that's all about your application. And third, and this is where the real power is, it's what connects people to your stuff, like that EKS cluster. It does this with some really smart routing, like sending someone in Europe to a European server for a super fast experience. It's pretty amazing. All right, let's pause for a little tech trivia, because this is kind of fun. Ever wonder why they called it Route 53? Yeah, it sounds like an old highway, but the story behind the name is actually way cooler and super nerdy. It's actually really simple. It's named after Port 53. See, in networking, you have these things called ports, which are like numbered doors for different kinds of internet traffic. And you guessed it, Port 53 is the one and only door that all DNS requests have to go through. So the name Route 53 is basically a shout out to the very foundation of how DNS works. Pretty neat, right? And check this out. This is a really wild connection. So Port 53 is for DNS, right? It authenticates web addresses. Well, get this. In biology, there's a super important protein called P53. And what does it do? It authenticates and repairs our DNA. And why is it called P53? Because its molecular weight is 53 kilodaltons. So you have two totally separate fields, tech and biochemistry, both using the number 53 for a crucial system of authentication and control. How cool is that? It's just a fun little detail that helps it stick in your brain. Okay, so let's pull all of this back to our developer and their Spring Boot app. What does all this actually mean for you in the real world? What's the one thing you really need to remember from all this? Here's the bottom line. Route 53 is not just some little technical detail you check off a list. It is the front door to your application. Simple as that. The way you set it up determines everything. Not just if people can find you, but how fast and reliable that connection is. It controls the entire user experience before they even see your first pixel. So that leaves us with this final question for you to think about. You've done all the hard work. You've built this amazing application. But have you really thought about that front door? Is it unlocked?
Is it easy for people to find? Because at the end of the day, the best app in the world doesn't matter if nobody can get to it. Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.